Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a fun love and postage theme card featuring some products from the stamp market. And I've had these products in my drawer for a little while and I've been meaning to use them, and I decided today was the day to break them out. And you can see I have several products here, including some die sets and some stamp sets. I love this Love Letter Express postage kind of themed stamp set. This is the Pierced Hearts cover plate. This is very cool because it will pierce these heart patterns into your cardstock, but it doesn't cut the outer edge, which I really appreciate. Then I have the Love Layers Shaker set, die set. I have lots of love notes here, and finally the Postage die set. And I'm going to be using several dies and several stamps from each of these, so let's get started. I'm starting out with some Neenah Solar White heavyweight cardstock cut to 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and I'm placing that directly behind my Pierced Hearts cover plate. Now remember, this isn't going to cut my cardstock, it's just going to pierce that heart pattern into the cardstock. And on a second piece of Neenah Solar White cardstock, I am arranging some of the dies. I have that smaller postage stamp, the word love, and then that open heart from that shaker die set. And once I have those all on my cutting plate, I'm going to go ahead and cover it up with the top part of my cutting sandwich and run that through my Gemini Junior to die cut all my pieces. Now here's that panel I die cut with the Pierced Hearts cover plate, and you can see, it's kind of hard to see, but it's basically just this pattern on the cardstock, which I think is so cool. And I have all of my die cut pieces ready to go. Now I did want to mention that love word, I did die cut that 3 times from Neenah Solar White cardstock because I'm going to be stacking that up a little later on in the video. Now I decided I wanted this panel to be slightly smaller, so I'm putting it into my paper trimmer and I'm trimming off 1/8 inch all the way around. So the finished size is going to actually be 3¾ inches by 5 inches. And that's just going to give me a nice framing space around the edge of my card when I place this onto my card base. Now for this little postage stamp, I was inspired by a project that I saw on the Stamp Market's Instagram account. And there was like this ombre postage stamp. And I can't remember if they used this die cut or if they used one of the actual stamps from that Love Letter Express stamp set. But that ombre stamp, postage stamp idea is what I kind of used for my jumping off point for this card. And I decided to do it with this die cut. Now I am using Blush Pink, Bubblegum Pink, and Peach from the Stamp Market. I have the melon there. I decided not to use it. And I'm starting at the top of my postage stamp. And I'm ink blending with the Stamp Market blending brushes this ink onto this postage stamp. Now my Blush Pink ink pad looked a little funky, and I will tell you why. I actually re-inked it the night before and didn't spread out the ink at all, so it kind of looks funky. It's working just fine, but I probably could have stood to have spread out that ink just a little bit. And now I'm finishing off this blend with the peach. Now I'm gonna go back through and kind of blend up this ombre pattern again to kind of make all the colors meld together, but it creates this beautiful postage stamp. Now I'm taking that open heart frame that's from the shaker die set that I showed you earlier, and I'm blending on some Blush Pink ink just because I wanted it to have a slight bit of color because it's going on a white background. I didn't want it to blend in too much, so I'm just lightly blending that Blush Pink over the top of this. Now, something that I did want to mention is the reason I don't know exactly if that was a stamped image or a die cut image that was an ombre postage stamp is because a lot of times when I'm inspired by something like that, I try not to go back and look at that project so I'm not trying to create an exact copy. I'm taking an element of that and kind of recreating it in my own way. And I find that if I go back and look at the project, I am tempted to kind of want to use the same elements in the same way. So I have not seen that project in quite a while, but I do remember seeing an ombre postage stamp on one of their preview images for this collection. And so I went with that without looking back at the project that originally inspired me. Now, I have this little stamp from the Love Letter Express stamp set. I stamped it onto some Neenah Solar White using the bubblegum ink, and then I ink blended over the top of that with a little bit of the blush pink ink just to help it kind of blend in. It felt a little too stark if it was just the pink and the white on its own, but that blush kind of knocked back the vibrancy of that white and kind of helped it to blend into everything. So now that I have all of my ink blending done, I'm going to do some stamping and heat embossing on several of these pieces. And you can see I actually have that kind of postage cancellation wavy line stamp mounted on my mini MISTI here, and I'm using that 5-cent Hugs stamp as well, both from the Love Letter Express stamp set. And because I want these cancellation lines to go over all of these pieces, including the background and that little circle element and the postage stamp, I am going to layer these up with just a little bit of removable adhesive and stamp those onto the surface using some VersaMark ink. I'm going to end up embossing these in gold. Now, once I remove that little circle element, I am going to re-ink these stamps again and stamp them onto the postage stamp and the background. Now, the reason that I'm removing these elements piece by piece and then re-stamping my image is because I don't want a weird gap in the lines of the stamp. And a lot of times if you layer a couple of pieces on top of each other and you do the stamping, you end up with a little gap where the separation of the paper is. So I am just stacking them all up, stamping and removing them element by element so that they're all going to be positioned where I want them, but I'm going to have that continuous stamping on all of the pieces. So now that I've stamped all of these elements with the VersaMark ink, and by the way, I did prep the surface of all of these elements with my powder tool before stamping, I'm going to add some Brutus Monroe Gilded embossing powder. Now on this one, it had a little area where there was some extra powder clinging to the die cut image, so I went ahead and just used a clean, dry paintbrush to knock off the excess. And this happened here as well because of the removable adhesive that I had on the back of those elements. So once I got that extra embossing powder knocked away, I am using my heat tool to heat set all of these different stamped images, and it creates this beautiful gold pattern. And when I layer these on top of each other, it's gonna look like it was all canceled together. I'm not gonna have any weird gaps. And I really love the way that this gold looks with this kind of ombre postage stamp that I've created. Now I'm going to do some more stamping on this postage stamp, and I'm using the little XO stamp. This is from the Love Letter Express stamp set. I'm mounting that into my mini MISTI and I'm stamping it onto my postage stamp using the bubblegum ink from the Stamp Market. Then I'm going to move my stamp down 2 lines on my mini MISTI. I'm going to re-ink again and stamp again in that bubblegum ink. And then once again, I'm going to move it down 2 more lines and stamp that a 3rd time. And I am just layering up all of these different images and die cuts to make something really fun and interesting. And I love the way that this card turned out because I'm not only layering die cuts, but I'm layering stamped images as well. And there's a lot going on, but it's not overdone and it's not really super cluttered. So now I took my Love die cuts and I used some liquid adhesive to stack 3 of them on top of each other to give that a little bit of dimension. I'm sorry I missed filming that. I actually didn't miss filming it, but I was having a text conversation with my friend and my phone was on my desk and there was nothing horrible going on, but I don't know that she wants the world to read our text messages. So I just cut that part out. Now for a little more stamping on this postage stamp, I am using one of the stamps from the Lots of Love Notes. I'm inking it up in bubblegum ink and I'm stamping it right on the bottom of this postage stamp. It says Happy Love Day. Now that I have all of my stamping and die cutting done, finished, and ready to go, I'm going to start layering these up and adhering them to my card base, my card front, and all of those kinds of goodies. So I added a single layer of foam adhesive behind that little circle that I adhered on top of my postage stamp. And on the back of the postage stamp, I have a double layer of foam adhesive that I'm adding so that there will be a lot of dimension. Now, keep in mind, if you don't want this much dimension, you could skip one of the layers of foam tape or you could skip the foam tape altogether. But I think the dimension creates so much interest create shadows and depth. And I really like big cards. And so I can't help myself when I go to put these things together. Now, to adhere that frame heart onto my card front, I went ahead and just sandwich it between the foam adhesive that was on the back of the postage stamp and the card front itself. And then I added my Love die cut here using a little bit of liquid adhesive. It does overlap that dimensional circle, but I'm okay with that. Now, to adhere this card base onto my card front, I am using some fun foam that is covered in 5-inch score tape. So I have these they're a little bit smaller than A2 size pieces of fun foam that are covered in this Be Creative tape, this 5-inch wide Be Creative tape. That's a tip I got from my friend Leah Lawson. That makes the foam on these so sturdy. It really does make a huge difference. But the thing is, that Be Creative tape is really strong. So you got to make sure you get your card front onto your card base exactly where you want it. Or you're going to have a mess on your hands trying to get that off. So now I've adhered my card front onto an A2 side folding card base. So this piece of cardstock was cut to 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And now I am adding some finishing touches. I added a little bit of stickles over that heart along with a layer of glossy accents. And to the Love die cut there, I added some tonic aqua shimmer pin. And that finishes off my postage love note for today. I have a plan for this card. It's just in time for Valentine's. And I'm actually planning on sending this to a friend. So this is a great card to use year round. If you wanted to change out that Happy Love Day with one of the other lots of love note sentiments, you could use this all year round. As always, I will have links to the featured supplies used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I will have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you won't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would share it with a friend as well. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm so glad you're here. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.